That is my chair. That is my introduction. That is my man. Not anymore.
Rebecca, this is not the place.
You planned this. Both of you. In my mother's compound. He chose me. Accept it.
I want you both to remember this day. Every detail of it. Because life has a memory longer than either of yours.
Rebecca was not supposed to find out the way she did. She was supposed to arrive in Enugu 2 days before her own introduction ceremony. Enough time to greet her mother, help arrange the compound, and receive Victor's family with the grace she had been preparing for months. She had bought her lace in Onitsha. She had chosen her colors. She had rehearsed the quiet smile she would wear when they placed the palm wine in her hands and pointed her toward the man she loved. Instead, she arrived to find her twin sister's shoes at the door of her mother's bedroom, Joy's perfume in every room, and a phone call from her aunt, who thought someone had already told her, who said with terrible casualness that the family on the other side had confirmed their arrival for Saturday. Saturday was still Rebecca's day, but the woman they were coming for was no longer Rebecca. She stood in the parlor of her mother's house and understood everything in the space of one breath. It had not happened suddenly. That was the part that would take her the longest to accept. Betrayal rarely does. Joy had not stumbled into Victor's arms by accident or weakness. She had walked toward him slowly, carefully, the way she had always done things that required patience and a willingness to destroy. It had started 8 months before, when Rebecca traveled to Port Harcourt for a 6-week nursing contract that stretched into 4 months. Victor stayed in Enugu. Joy stayed close to Victor. At first it was phone calls, Joy checking in on his behalf, passing messages, being helpful in the way that looks innocent until it doesn't. Then it was visits. Then it was dinners. Then it was something Rebecca was not there to see, but would spend years reconstructing in her mind. Joy had always known how to wear Rebecca's life better than Rebecca wore it herself. They shared one face. They had shared one womb. But Joy always believed that made everything between them negotiable. What was Rebecca's could become Joy's if Joy simply wanted it enough. It had been that way with their father's attention when they were small, with their secondary school prize, with every good thing Rebecca reached first. This time Joy had simply reached further than she ever had before. Their mother knew. That was the second wound. The woman who had carried both of them, nursed both of them, buried herself in poverty so both of them could have school fees. She had watched it happen and said nothing. Not because she approved, but because by the time she understood what Joy was doing, Victor was already lost, and she was too afraid of the noise that truth would make. Rebecca did not cry in the parlor. She would cry later, in a hotel room in Enugu where she checked in alone that night, because she could not sleep under the same roof as what had been done to her. She cried until her chest hurt, and her eyes swelled, and the pillow was damp in a wide cold circle. She cried for Victor. She cried for the introduction she had planned. She cried for the version of Joy she had loved and protected and sacrificed for. The version she now understood had never fully existed. Then she stopped. Not because the pain was gone, but because something else arrived quietly inside her. Something that had no name, but felt like the opposite of surrender. She went to the introduction ceremony the next morning in her burgundy lace. Not to fight, not to collapse. She went because it was her family's compound and she had every right to stand in it. Went because she wanted Victor to see her face when he made his choice publicly. She went because she wanted Joy to understand that there are women who do not disappear when you try to erase them. She stood at the back. She watched Joy receive the family in gold sequins. She watched Victor's eyes find her across the compound and then slide away. The look of a man who knows what he has done and has decided the easiest thing is to keep doing it. She said what she said. She walked out through the gate, and she did not look back. The celebration continued. Victor and Joy were blessed by two families who only knew half of what they were blessing. Photographs were taken, food was eaten. Her mother caught Rebecca's eye once across the compound before Rebecca turned away. And in that look was every apology her mother did not know how to speak aloud. Rebecca drove back to Port Harcourt that afternoon. She requested an extension on her contract. She found a small flat in Rumola and she furnished it slowly, one piece at a time, with money she earned herself. She called no one from Enugu for 3 months. She was not hiding. She was healing in the only way that works. Forward motion, quiet purpose, and the daily decision not to let what was stolen define what remained. She threw herself into her work with everything she had. The ward sister noticed, then the matron, then the hospital director, a quiet woman named Dr. Amara, who had built her career on recognizing people who worked from the boons outward. Rebecca was promoted, then promoted again. She was sent to Lagos for a 6-month specialist program. She went, she excelled, she returned to Port Harcourt as a senior nursing officer with a salary that would have seemed impossible to the girl who once skipped meals so Joy could have complete school fees. She did not post about it, she did not announce it, she simply lived it. Joy's marriage, meanwhile, began its slow and private unraveling within the first year. Victor was not a bad man. That was perhaps the most complicated part of everything. He was a weak man, which is a different and in some ways more dangerous thing. He had allowed himself to be redirected by proximity and flattery and the particular skill Joy always possessed of making a man feel chosen even when she was the one doing the choosing. But weakness does not make a foundation, and what Joy had built on Victor's weakness began to show cracks before their first anniversary photographs had finished printing. She had won a man by becoming Rebecca, but she did not know how to sustain that. The warmth Joy had performed during courtship was exhausting to maintain in a household. The patience she had mimicked was not in her nature. Victor began to see in the daily ordinariness of marriage that the woman he had chosen did not feel like what he had imagined. He could not name what was missing, but absence has its own presence, and he felt it every morning. He started to ask questions, first of himself, then quietly of others. The truth came to him through the most ordinary channel imaginable, an old message thread on a phone Joy had forgotten to clear. He sat with it for 2 weeks, reading and rereading, understanding slowly the architecture of what had been built around him. The fabricated stories, the carefully timed phone calls that had arrived when his doubts were highest, the version of Rebecca that Joy had constructed and fed him, distant, unreliable, distracted, which bore no resemblance to the woman he now remembered standing at the back of the compound in burgundy lace, calm and dignified and already beyond him. He went to Joy with the phone. She did not deny it. What happened next was not what he expected. Joy did not fight. She did not deflect. Something in her seemed to have been waiting for this moment, waiting for someone to finally hold up the evidence and make the weight of it real. She sat across from him at their dining table in their Enugu home, and she told him everything, all of it, every calculated step, every deliberate lie. Every moment she chose winning over her sister's happiness. She told him about the school fees Rebecca quietly paid so Joy could finish her final year of university. She told him about the shoes Rebecca gave her for her first job interview. She told him that Rebecca had never once, in all their years, done to Joy what Joy had done to her. Victor listened, and then he did something Joy had not anticipated. He picked up his phone and he called Rebecca. She did not answer the first time or the second. On the third call, she picked up and said simply, "Victor." He said, "I know everything. I am sorry. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to hear it from me directly." There was a long silence on the line. Then Rebecca said, "Thank you for calling," and she ended it. She did not rush back. She did not call Joy. She sat in her Port Harcourt flat with a cup of tea and she allowed herself to feel the complicated thing that was not quite satisfaction and not quite sorrow, but lived somewhere quietly between them. She had not needed Victor's apology to be whole. She had built her wholeness herself, piece by piece, in the months since she walked out of that compound. But there was something in hearing it, something that closed a door she hadn't realized was still open. Joy's confession did not stay between husband and wife. It could not. Victor told his family. His mother, a woman who attended that introduction ceremony and blessed that union in good faith, received the truth with a fury that was cold and permanent. She did not shout. She simply stopped visiting, stopped calling, stopped pretending that what Joy had done was something a family could quietly absorb and move past. Victor's sisters followed, then the friends who had celebrated the wedding, then Joy's own colleagues who had heard versions of the story and now heard the full one. Joy found herself standing in the center of a life she had stolen and discovering that stolen lives do not hold their shape once the theft is known. The house was still there, the furniture was still there, her name was still on the marriage certificate, but everything that makes a life feel like a life, the warmth, the belonging, the knowledge that the people around you chose you honestly, all of it was gone. Victor filed for separation 8 months after his phone call to Rebecca. He did not do it with drama. He did it with the exhausted sadness of a man who had finally understood the cost of his own weakness and was no longer willing to pay it. Rebecca heard about it through her mother, who called her one Sunday evening, voice low and careful. Their relationship had been rebuilding slowly, one honest conversation at a time, her mother carrying the guilt of her silence like something she would never fully put down. Rebecca listened. She said very little. When her mother finished, Rebecca said, "I forgave you a long time ago, Mama, but forgiving is not the same as forgetting. I need you to know that." Her mother wept. She let her. 6 months after Victor's separation, he came to Port Harcourt. He did not call ahead. He found her address through a mutual family friend, and he appeared at her door on a Saturday morning with nothing in his hands and everything in his eyes. He looked like a man who had traveled a long way and was not sure he deserved to have arrived. Rebecca opened the door and looked at him for a long moment. She did not invite him in immediately. She stood in the doorway of the life she had built, the flat that was hers, earned by her hands, decorated by her taste, filled with the quiet evidence of who she had become, and she looked at the man who was once the center of her future and was now simply a person on her threshold. "You should have called." He said, "I know. I was afraid you wouldn't answer." She considered that. Then she stepped aside and let him in. She made tea. They sat across from each other at her small dining table, not the way they used to sit, close and easy, but with the careful distance of two people who understand that trust, once broken, must be rebuilt at its own pace and cannot be rushed by regret alone. He talked. She listened. He told her about the months since the separation, about the silence in the house, about the specific loneliness of lying in a bed beside someone and knowing that everything between you was built on sand. He told her he did not come to ask for anything. He came to because he owed her the truth of how deeply he understood what had been done to her and what he had allowed through his own weakness to be done. When he finished, Rebecca set down her cup and looked at him steadily. "I am not the same woman you are engaged to," she said. "I want you to understand that. She is gone. What is sitting across from you now is someone who built herself back from nothing and has no intention of being anyone's second thought ever again." Victor nodded slowly. "I know," he said. "That is why I came." They did not fall back into each other that day. That was not how Rebecca was built, and he was beginning to understand that now. Too late, perhaps, but understanding nonetheless. What they did was begin, slowly, carefully, with the full weight of everything that had happened sitting between them, acknowledged and not hidden. Joy did not come to either of them. She had retreated into a silence that was not chosen, but inevitable. The silence of someone who has spent everything and finds the account empty. She was still in Enugu, still in the house, still carrying the name of a marriage that existed now only on paper. She had won, and then she had lost. And the particular cruelty of her loss was that she could not blame anyone else for it. Rebecca knew this, and she found, to her own quiet surprise, that it brought her no pleasure. Not because Joy deserved her mercy, but because Rebecca had grown past the size of revenge. What Joy had done was real and permanent and unforgivable in the truest sense, not the dramatic one, but the honest one. Some things cannot be undone, and pretending otherwise is its own kind of lie. Rebecca did not forgive Joy, but she did not carry her either. She let her go, the way you release something heavy, not because it deserves to be free, but because you are finally strong enough to understand that holding it was always costing you more than it was costing the thing you held. On a quiet Tuesday morning in Port Harcourt, Rebecca stood at the window of her flat and watched the street below come alive. The bread sellers, the early commuters, the school children in their uniforms, and she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Not happiness exactly, something older and more solid than that. She felt like herself, fully, finally, without apology and without the shadow of anyone else's choices falling across the life she had built with her own two hands. That was the ending Joy never considered when she sat across from Victor and began her careful work of replacing one sister with another. She had thought she was taking a man. She had no idea she was setting her sister free. Was she right to let Victor back in, or should she have walked away for good? Drop your answer in the comments below. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today. And drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.